Good morning. Welcome back to Fit Body Secrets, where my mission is to bring you all fitness, fat loss, and training tips to help y'all on your fitness and your fat loss journey. I'm going to get myself live on Instagram, and I know I am a little bit early today, but I got my day started a little bit early, and I'm just going to flow with it. Yep, I am live there. So, good morning, everybody. How's it going? Let me see if there's anybody tuning in on Instagram before I get started. Coach Jeremy Jordan, Brad Ames. It's always interesting reading the names that are coming on. Today I have a lot to talk about CrossFit. Well, really the junction between CrossFit and hormones, because there's so much misconception about obviously high intensity training, its impact on hormones, and specifically CrossFit. And I want to go over some of the pros and cons so that you guys know exactly how to get the most out of your CrossFit training. Because the main thing here is, I'm not telling you that CrossFit is the only way to train, right? There are plenty of other programs out there. But if you like doing CrossFit, you enjoy doing CrossFit, I want you to know how to get the most out of it, and also not feel like you shouldn't be doing it because somebody told you that it's bad for your hormones or that it's causing you more inflammation or it's bad for your body composition. I want you guys to understand what matters and where this whole mindset shift had kind of come from. Because at the end of the day, CrossFit's goal, the mission of CrossFit is to get you guys fitter, ready for life. And in part of the 100 words of fitness is, regulating body composition to minimize excess body fat and make sure that you are, building lean muscle tissue to be as fit and strong as possible. And I'm saying that without using the exact words of 100 words of fitness, but that is a piece of the CrossFit puzzle, So I want you guys to get the most out of your training and also hopefully give you some insight as to what is going on from a hormone perspective when we are doing CrossFit and other things that are going to impact your recovery. So if this episode hits home for you, you want more education on the right nutrition strategy for fueling CrossFit, I am going to be doing a workshop this coming weekend, and I'm going to be plugging it a few times throughout this series today, because if you guys are listening live and you tune in, hopefully you'll jump on and be like, oh, I want to join in on that workshop. It's on Sunday morning. I did try and make it on the weekend so that hopefully you guys would all be able to attend. I know that during the week, sometimes it's hard. Like, you guys might be listening to me right now as you're, maybe doing other things, but a lot of people are like on the hustle grind of, I got to get to work. I got to get the kids ready. So hopefully Sunday morning, and it is at 9 a.m. So I'm like, man, my Pacific time peeps, they can come on early. My peeps in like UK, because I do have people everywhere, hopefully they can come on a little bit later. But at the end of the day, I can never find the perfect time for everybody. So, but I'm going to start focusing on today's episode, which is going to be breaking down hormones and CrossFit, primarily for those of you guys that are in that 35 plus crew. And let's just talk about the fact that, well, it's mostly because in your early 20s, you can throw anything at your body and your body's going to respond, right? Like, especially if you've never been on a diet before, you've never followed a fitness program before, everything works because you've done nothing in the past. So it's like, it's kind of like, and this is where people go down this rabbit hole of like, why is what I did then no longer working now? Because it was new then. It's no longer new now. Your body has already adapted to that. And I want to help you guys get a positive adaptation to what you are experiencing with CrossFit. By the way, I am not in my kitchen today. I decided that I wanted to sit and chill in my office. I'm like, you know what? I know I need to get this office looking a little better, that I just have a blank wall behind me, but it just feels good to just sit and chill today. And this episode might get a little bit long because I do feel very chill and relaxed this morning. So, but let me go ahead and get started. So if you are particularly a female CrossFitter over 35, this is really for you, whether you have been training for months and years, or you're just getting started and you're like, man, I keep hearing these things that maybe I shouldn't be doing this. Maybe you've been doing it I've got clients that have been doing CrossFit for over 10 years. And they're like, you know what, like, should I be doing things differently? Maybe your body isn't responding the same way as it did then. Again, going back to what I already said, it's no longer a new thing. And for a lot of you guys, maybe you're finding that now, even if you just started CrossFit, or you've been doing for a CrossFit for a while, maybe fat loss is a lot harder. Maybe you're finding that maintaining your weight is harder, that, you were fine a few years ago, but all of a sudden you can't seem to keep the weight off no matter how hard you diet. Maybe you're finding that your recovery and your motivation in the gym is going down. You're just not feeling like you're making the progress that you were. And again, yes, all of this sometimes can come with aging and can come with, just the wear and tear in your joints, and obviously the adaptation of it's no longer new. But there are some other things that might be going on there, like maybe something just isn't right. Maybe you're feeling more inflamed. You're noticing that your body just is like sore all the time. Maybe you're tired all the time, and maybe you just feel kind of off, right? Like, and maybe you don't even notice it as much in your gym as you notice it throughout your life, like throughout your day. CrossFit used to make you feel really good and energized, and now like you don't get those same effects anymore. All right. So key thing here is what I want you to get out of this today is this isn't about you like being broken and about having all these problems. I think that the other thing is that a lot of women in particular, they go down the rabbit holes of research, and that can lead you almost to feel overwhelmed, like, oh my God, I'm doing all of the wrong things. And guess what? That usually negatively impacts you, because now you're focusing on all of these different things that really aren't moving the needle any further, and they're just creating more stress. And that's usually the biggest problem, is your body's stress response. So what I want to start with is kind of breaking down the big hormones, the ones that really matter when we're talking about CrossFit specifically and how your body reacts to it, because there should be positive hormonal changes with CrossFit. In fact, CrossFit was meant to create a positive neuroendocrine response. If you're doing the right dosage of the training in the right balance, and you're actually following the CrossFit methodology with the different time domains, the different energy pathways and all that stuff, and using the 10 foundational skills, you should be seeing a positive neuroendocrine response. But a lot of us get kind of, I want to say we get, we cherry pick a little bit. We know what we like. We know what we don't like. Maybe we gravitate towards one specific area of CrossFit than the other. Or maybe we're just doing too much overall, and it's all kind of, it gets amplified, especially because when CrossFit was first created and designed, it was like a 1-a-day workout, and it was one piece. And now, like, your one piece in a workout session has turned into 3 or 4 pieces, and that has turned into sometimes twice a day. So it's not just been this like one thing. It's actually evolved over time to be multiple things. And for some of you guys, done multiple times throughout the day, and all of that stuff has changed, right? So let's talk about these big hormones. The big one, and I think the one that most of you guys are very familiar with, is cortisol, known as your stress hormone. Okay, so acute cortisol responses are actually normal and very beneficial. They signal your body to make sure that you're staying alive. It's going to make sure that it shuttles nutrients where your body needs them. It gets you alert. It is really important to understand that cortisol is not a bad thing. Okay. So, however, chronically elevated cortisol levels can cause some issues. We can see poor sleep. We can see increased inflammation. We can see more fat loss resistance, more bloating, puffiness, gut dysfunction. And what's really important is to realize that as you are aging, it's not an age-related issue, but your stress tolerance your stress tolerance has gone down, but that's because it's also being pushed in so many different areas. We no longer at 35 plus are living the lifestyle of living with my mom. I don't have any kids. Job is there, but it's not as hard. I don't have as many responsibilities. Maybe you're a driven individual. Maybe your kids are growing up and there's a lot of things going on with your teenage kids that are requiring, or they're more demanding of you. It's a compounding stress, right? Like, it's all of this stress, and CrossFit in itself isn't really stressful, right? Like, it's not stressful to go into the gym and do a 20-minute workout. It's stressful when you're doing that and you have high expectations on yourself, and you're also extremely tired from everything else you've done in life, right? So it's not the CrossFit that really impacts the stress levels, but acutely, we need that cortisol response. Your body will adapt positively from it. Chronically, it can cause some negative adaptations. Let's talk about insulin a little bit. And I'm talking about these two first because they're the ones that most of you guys are familiar with. Insulin is a very important hormone for fuel and also for recovery, because insulin is what helps shuttle nutrients into your muscles. It's what helps replenish glycogen. It's what helps your muscles repair. And it does also help with performance. However, one of the common issues with CrossFitters, specifically females, as your body starts to change a little bit, you're not sure why. Maybe you never had to focus on your nutrition, and all of a sudden now it seems like every little detail matters. The more you try and control things, a lot of bad diet advice has led you wrong, and you're under consuming carbs, which actually leads to a very poor insulin response. I think that a lot of people think that being insulin sensitive means dropping carbs and forcing your body to burn off of fat, or being metabolically flexible. That's what that means. And that couldn't be further from the truth, because carbohydrates given at the right time in the right dosage can cause a positive insulin response. And that's what a lot of you guys are missing out on because you're avoiding carbohydrates. I like to use the thought process of like, I talk to a lot of my millennial women about, we all grew up in like the 90s where skinny culture was a big thing. And it was like very, very, very low calorie diets. All the women were very, very slim. And we're now living in a world where like, that's not the norm. We know the body we want, but in your head, like the diet that they were following is somehow what you should be doing. And it's a very different lifestyle, a very different type of training. We are not doing Zumba and freaking Jane Fonda videos with bands in the CrossFit gym. All right. So you cannot, you are training an athletic type of training. Even though you might say, I just do the class workout. Okay. You just do the class workout, but guess what? Somebody that's training sport specific, they might just be training basketball or just be training soccer or just be training powerlifting, but they're training it with an intent for the amount of time that they dedicate to it. So don't tell yourself like your volume or your skill set is not valid to fuel yourself. You need to fuel yourself for the type of training that you're doing. And being on a chronic diet is what's leading a lot of women wrong. Okay. So I want to get into a little segue before I go into the next head, hormones, because I want to talk a little bit about carbs, insulin, cortisol, fat, because I think that there is this huge, huge, huge misconception about like I mentioned, removing the carbs and how insulin and cortisol are making you fat. And I want to really help you guys understand what matters most. Your hormones, okay, like don't kill the messenger. The hormones do not cause you to gain weight, all right? They are simply relaying messages between what's inputs, so the food you're taking in, the stress you're under, and giving outputs. They're helping your metabolism regulate the amount of energy available, right? So between sleep and nutrition, that's going to allow your body to be able to handle stress. And if you're chronically pushing your stress levels beyond what your body can handle, your body will start to adapt and you will start to burn less calories. And it becomes a calorie game, not necessarily a hormone game. You have to realize that if you want to stay optimized, you got to mitigate stress, or you have to realize that calorically, your body is going to adapt to that stress, and it is going to require you to be tighter on your calories. And it's also going to mean that you're probably not going to feel as good in your day. You're not going to have as much muscle building potential, right? So let's talk a little bit about this whole myth about carbs and spiking insulin and how this is bad for cortisol and it's causing inflammation, leading you to fat gain. So that's probably one of the biggest things, is that when you're in this place of like, my body, my cortisol, this, it's easy to like just kill the carbs, right? Let's just kill the carbs. Carbs are not doing you a problem. They're doing you a service. Perfect example. All right. Going into the calorie game, carb game. Okay. 100 grams of carbs is only 400 calories. Okay. Like if you really think that 400 calories a day, it's what's causing you to feel so crappy, you are highly mistaken, right? Like it's looking at how that dose doesn't really make that big of a change. Carbs do not spike insulin necessarily. Carbs do not directly cause inflammation. Carbs do not directly cause fat gain. They do not cause a spike in your cortisol levels. All right. I want you to understand where a lot of this stuff is coming from. Diet culture, people trying to sell you programs, keto, low carb messaging, and it's just fear-based hormone content that is getting you to normally subscribe to their style of eating. And it's disgusting. And honestly, I feel like it's so, to me, as a nutritionist, it's so biased that you would think that that is the only way to achieve the goal that you're looking for. So, example, I have this woman in my head and I can't even think of her name right now, but she is like so carnivore, like carnivore, like just spit, like literally videos of her just like eating meat and like just fear mongering about people and carbs and fat and all this stuff. And it's like, yeah, maybe you do feel really good. Maybe you do really feel like this diet worked for you. But why did that diet work for you? It wasn't the fact that it was carnivore. Were you like very overweight? Were you eating a bunch of processed food? Were you not eating enough protein? Were you not working out the way that you are now? Okay, correlation is not always causation. And as a coach myself, like I have to make sure that I'm always educating from a non-biased opinion. All right. So that's why I don't subscribe to any specific diet protocols. In fact, if you ask me, what is your program? Like, I couldn't tell you in one sentence. That's what makes my program different because I don't have a one line, this is the diet. I have a method that I use, but there's components to it. It's science based. Okay. So it's not just a little tangent here, but they don't cause any of that stuff. All right. Let's talk a little bit about insulin, especially for those of you guys that are afraid of insulin spikes. Okay. Your insulin is going to spike in response to cortisol. That is going to happen regardless of your eating habits. Now, eating habits can impact it, but if I all of a sudden got stressed out, my cortisol is going to rise and my body's going to produce insulin. It's why you can have high blood sugar without even eating carbs because your body is getting a stress response. Okay. Insulin is a storage and recovery hormone, but when most people hear storage, they think fat. All right. But in reality, the storage it also does is things like when you eat carbohydrates, okay, glycogen to the muscles. All right. When I eat protein, break it down into amino acids, rebuild the muscles, right? It is normal to have insulin spikes and it is necessary. You would die if you did not have insulin spikes. All right. So they don't directly cause fat gain. What does cause fat gain is truly chronic overconsumption without demand. Okay, so chronically overfeeding yourself and not actually using that energy will cause demand or cause you to gain weight. Remember that fat isn't necessarily a bad thing. Fat is your body's energy reserves. It's your body's savings account. So it's kind of like saving money. Insulin, when I mentioned chronic overconsumption without demand, it's kind of like you're so afraid to spend money that you keep saving all of this money and it's just like accumulating and it's like just piling up, which is great in terms of money, right? You're sitting on all this money, but eventually, like, how is your life if you're not ever demanding it? You're not ever using it, right? You're demanding a lot of your body. You're demanding a lot when you're doing high intensity training. There is a high glycogen demand on that. And also looking at your lifestyle outside of CrossFit. This is where personalization comes into play. And I will be covering this in my workshop on Sunday because your life outside of CrossFit has a lot bigger of a effect on your energy demands than your actual CrossFit training. I'm going over the specifics of CrossFit today, but how you are throughout your day is also going to impact your recovery and your energy needs. All right. So, but the main thing here is that insulin isn't a bad hormone. Carbs are necessary for you to feel your best in CrossFit. And I want you guys to realize that, you know, intense training is going to raise your cortisol. Carbs is something that a lot of women don't understand are what actually lower your cortisol post-workout. In fact, a lot of you might be conditioned to grab that post-workout protein shake. Did you know that in that post-workout window, your body needs to replenish glycogen stores first? That is your stress response. Your body's like, oh my gosh, glycogen's depleted. I need fuel. So whatever nutrients we're taking in post-workout, our body is trying hard to process them, to shuttle them into our body as glycogen to refuel that. So if you're just taking in protein because you're like, I got to get my protein in, you might actually absorb that protein better if you coupled it with some carbohydrates, because your body would get the carbs it needs for recovery, insulin, and that's where like the post-workout stack for a lot of people comes into play. This is, I'm going to also say, this is non-biased. This is not a must-have. It is a optimal thing. This might help recovery a little bit more. It doesn't mean you can't recover as long as you're getting enough protein and carbs throughout the day. Okay. But carbs in that post-workout window can lower the stress response. This can be helpful because you will find that you'll recover a little bit faster. Your energy is better throughout the day. Recovery is more consistent, and inflammation might go down. In fact, I find that a lot of times when women come to me and they've been under eating, when I increase their carbohydrates, they do notice they don't feel as bloated, they don't feel as puffy, and it's mostly because they've been under eating carbs. They may not be losing weight because maybe calories have been too high, but they're not getting in enough carbohydrates. That's why it's important not to look at just calories. You got to look at macro splits too. All right. I haven't even gotten into the next hormones yet because I'm still going into carbs and all of this kinds of stuff, but we're going to keep going. All right. So the next thing I want to touch on with specifically carbs, cortisol, and insulin is that inflammation marker. All right. So remember that inflammation comes from multiple things, likely not from your diet though. It can come from under eating. It comes from, because that's a chronic stressor. It can come from poor sleep. It can come from too much training stress or volume and not enough recovery. And those things can cause inflammation. However, under eating carbs can also cause more inflammation. All right. So I think that a lot of people cut out carbs thinking that if I cut out carbs, I'm going to remove inflammation. No, like those actually could be helping your recovery if you're putting them in the right spots. So I just really want you guys to understand here, because I know that insulin and cortisol are probably two of the hormones that you guys struggle with the most in terms of trying to know what is the right thing. And we'll talk a little about sex hormones too, but I want you to realize that CrossFit itself does not cause any negative impact on your insulin levels or your cortisol levels. In fact, if anything, a net positive when your recovery from it is matched. So looking at the dosage of it, and we'll talk more about that as we get going. Okay. All right. So let's talk a little bit now about the next hormones that I want to talk about. And this is where I'm going to go into some of the positive benefits of CrossFit and some things that you might be doing wrong that are not allowing you to get these positive benefits. Growth hormone and IGF-1. Okay, these hormones are so good for building lean muscle tissue and recovery. And if you are resistance training and you are pushing intensity, you are positively impacting your body's growth hormone production and IGF-1 production. However, what suppresses them? Chronic calorie restriction, not getting enough sleep, and excess volume. And when we talk about recovery, and those of you guys that are having a negative adaptation to CrossFit, I can say that probably one of those three things, if not all of them, is why you're feeling stuck, right? Man, maybe I haven't been eating enough. Man, yeah, she's right. I do not sleep well. Man, I am always trying to tack more on and not doing less, right? All of that stuff matters. Estrogen and progesterone. Ladies, this is also a very important thing to talk about. Men as well. But these are your estrogen and your progesterone levels are very, very, very reactive to stress, underfueling, and either too much or too little body fat. And this is why optimal body fat percentage is an important thing to touch on. However, it's likely not what you think it is. In fact, did you know that the average body fat percentage for the American woman is like 40%? And a lot of my ladies are looking to get down to like 15 to 18%. Optimal body fat percentage for healthy individuals is somewhere between, for women, somewhere between, I would say 18 and 24%. 18, a little bit lower than that, your lifestyle is more dedicated to fitness, hands down. If you want to get leaner and you want to say that it can be very healthy, it can be, you can live a healthy life there, but it does require more dedication to fitness. On the 22 to 24%, you might not see as much definition. There's nothing wrong with that. Your body is still healthy and fit and lean. It just might not be compared to that woman that's, training for 2 hours a day and she's every single meal is locked in and she doesn't have kids, right? Like it's a very different type of lifestyle. But your body hormones, your sex hormones, progesterone and estrogen specifically, are very reactive to stress. In fact, you might notice that your period is really hard for you to figure out how to train around. I work a lot with my clients on how to, you know, change up training a little bit around their cycle without changing their training program. It's just knowing how their body reacts to it. Maybe your cycle feels a little bit off when you started CrossFit or from doing CrossFit over time. Maybe you notice amplified symptoms around your period or PMS symptoms, and it's harder. More water retention, mood shifts, all of this stuff can be signs. Like, yes, we are all going to have a period and we're all going to have the symptoms around ovulation and menstruation. But if you're fueling your body right and you're doing CrossFit, we should be seeing positive changes in that stuff. Okay. So I think the biggest thing is that there's so much information out there. We're like, oh, like you shouldn't train this week or that week. Like, no, like you just have to know how to not be so freaking hard on yourself, right? We are all so hard on ourselves all of the time. All right. So other hormones to talk about are your thyroid hormones. Not gonna, I could make a podcast episode on each and every one of these, but these are the ones I think that matter most because these are the ones I see the most dysfunction in when it comes to hormones. So thyroid hormones are what regulate your metabolism and energy. Listen up here, ladies. All right. Chronic undereating, high training volume can downregulate output. I see borderline low thyroid on a lot of my female athlete clients or females that they don't even want to consider themselves an athlete, but they just train CrossFit, which is athletic. And they freak out that their thyroid's low. And before freaking out, it's realizing, okay, this is your body downregulating thyroid hormones, as I mentioned before, because there's not enough energy available. All right. So this often gets mistaken as like, oh my gosh, my metabolism's broken, when in reality, it's just your body reacting to stress. Again, going back into cortisol, insulin, your body is designed to adapt to stress. And CrossFit can actually help your body adapt better to stress if we are fueling appropriately and we are looking at the response we're looking to see, the way we should feel in our daily basis, on a daily basis. All right. So let's talk about the positive hormonal adaptations of CrossFit when it is done well. All right. So if you are like thinking to yourself, I just should not be doing CrossFit, or I've pulled back on CrossFit because I've been told I shouldn't be doing CrossFit, there are some very clear positive benefits to CrossFit. All right. So improved insulin sensitivity being one of them. I know that Greg Glassman no longer works for CrossFit, but his message still reigns in the CrossFit community, and he's bringing it to his own brand, right? Insulin sensitivity is very important for metabolic health, and the right dosage of CrossFit is going to improve insulin sensitivity. Increase lean muscle mass. A lot of women think that you cannot build muscle doing CrossFit. I have done primarily CrossFit since 2010. Yeah, 2010. And I have a good amount of muscle mass. I would have to look back at one of my first scans to see where my muscle mass was when I first started as to where it is now, but you can increase muscle mass. Strong bones. I have had multiple DEXA scans done, and my bone density is very good, and I do CrossFit. All right. Metabolic flexibility. I am an athlete myself. I consume over 500 carbs a day. My fasted blood glucose is good. My fasted blood sugar is good. I can do a fasted workout if I need to, and I don't bonk. I know my body is very, very, very metabolically flexible right now. Improved confidence and resilience. And I think that this shows up not just in the gym, but in life. In fact, I think a lot of you, this is where you're at. You used to feel really confident in the gym. You used to go to the gym and it would feel good. And now you go and it's like, it's always a measuring stick. And you've lost that confidence in yourself. And this is what I want to give you back. Because CrossFit at one point made you feel like a badass. It made you feel good. And if you're just starting, you're like, I want to feel like a badass, right? So it builds resilience. The more you put up with in CrossFit, the women who do CrossFit are not weak-minded women. They're not. Okay. And I know that. All right. Here's where things go wrong. There are a lot of common patterns that I find with the women that I work with. one of them being that, and I don't want to blame the coach, but it's just like not truly understanding the dosage of intensity. And one of the things I will credit one of my first mentors with, Ben Bergeron, because I worked for him for 4 years, is the importance of educating the classes on when to push intensity. And I can still remember the talk that I would give on a very routine basis with my coach, with my classes, talking about that the majority of your week, we should be training. It's operating at like RPE of like 7 to 8, right? We're pushing paces. We're really trying to figure out like where we could pull back a little bit, where we could push a little bit harder. Then we have some time dedicated to practice. Like this is where we're practicing new skills, adaptations, trying to get better at something. And then the 10% of the time, that's like the one workout, the one lift where like you're like, I am going so hard in this one session. Like that's the one that I'm going to push in. But a lot of my CrossFit women, and myself included, fall victim into thinking that every single workout has to be high intensity, that it's always about how hard can I push here. And it's why you feel beat up. It's why you feel tired. It's why you're not getting the response that you want to. High volume on top of high stress. So a lot of you are like, I really want to get good at CrossFit. Should I be doing more? Should I be doing double days? But like, you're also trying to get to the gym at 5 a.m. and then you're at work all day and then you're trying to go back to the gym at 7 and then you're not getting any sleep and you're doing it again. Like that's too much for you and not necessary, right? We have to look at how much volume your body can adapt to along with the life stress that you're under. Okay. I think that deloading, and this is not meant to be a scheduled in deload, but it's knowing, hey, I've been pushing pretty hard for like 6 weeks. It's probably time for my body to take a little bit of a break. Or maybe life just naturally brings you deload, and really leaning into those weeks where like, all right, I'm on vacation. Okay. So I'm not going to be stressed about CrossFit versus I got to get up and go to the gym, so that can really happen. Training fasted or chronically being underfueled, not training after you work out, so women are like, oh, I need to be more insulin sensitive. So they train without eating, or they don't feel good eating before they work out, or they're trying to save their calories for later. And all of this can cause things to feel stuck and cause you to feel stuck and inflamed, along with just chronic low carb dieting. And this is, I will say, to a disservice of CrossFit. Like I think that it's very hard because the CrossFit methodology still wants you to only do one workout a day. And the adaptations really happen where you are driven to do more than that. And it's understanding how, if you're tacking on more demands, you do need to be eating more carbohydrates. And we can't just chronically keep telling people, no carbs, no carbs, no carbs. Like, because yeah, if all I was doing all day was 5-minute Fran and I was sitting the rest of the day, I probably am not burning through a lot of carbs and probably don't need a lot of carbs. But if I'm, also going about my day doing a lot of other things, I need more carbohydrates. Okay, so the hormonal consequences from this stuff: chronically elevated cortisol, suppressed thyroid output, poor insulin responses, increased inflammation, and then a disrupted cycle or even PMS symptoms that are amplified. Okay, so these aren't signs that you need to stop doing CrossFit. It's just signs that your body is asking for support. Okay, so that's really what I want you guys to get from this today. Next thing that I want to talk about here, and this is where I'm going to start to turn into some practical things that you guys can be doing right now. And I've already kind of touched on it with what I mentioned to you about my mentorship with Ben. But it's understanding the dosage. And this dosage is not a one-size-fits-all approach. You have to look at like, how hard are you pushing? You want to look forward to your workouts. You need to be getting enough. Okay, so if you're someone that's like, I'm only doing CrossFit once or twice a week, you're never going to adapt, especially if you're not consistent with that. If you're like, I'm at once or twice a week, I want to build up to what the program was designed for, which is I'm going to get to the gym, 4 to 5 days a week. It doesn't mean I'm in the gym for 2 hours a day, 4 to 5 days a week. It's like, I'm going to do a CrossFit workout 4 to 5 days a week. That is what CrossFit was designed to be. And one of those days might be you doing a 20-minute AMRAP at home of body weight, because guess what? Body weight workouts are a part of CrossFit. Okay. So, it's really important to look at the dosage: intensity, volume, and frequency. All right. Intensity is how hard you're pushing. Volume is how much, and frequency is how often. All right. So you want to make sure that you are not doing all three of these things at the same time every single day. All right. You can't be pushing max effort in huge amounts of volume every single day, all the time. Your body needs recovery, and your nervous system will give you recovery when it needs to. It will be forced and you will not like it. All right. So you'll get injured, you'll feel burned out, your body will start to store body fat, all of that stuff happens. So I would like to leave this section on getting you to understand that more CrossFit isn't necessarily better. Better is better. And if there's things in CrossFit you want to get better at, sprinkling them in as practice or as training, but not pushing intensity on them. I also think that following a structured program and layering in volume as you adapt is also important, because even myself, I can tolerate a lot more volume than I could when I first started CrossFit. Okay. All right. Plugging right along. So we're going to talk a little bit about nutrition and how that's going to impact your hormone response. And this is where most women miss the mark. Okay. Most of you guys have no idea how much you should be eating just to maintain, not to mention taking into factor your CrossFit training and what you're doing there, whether it's one class a day, whether it's a 90-minute workout, whether it's a 4-hour CrossFit Mayhem workout or session or a Mayhem programming. So here's the deal. And I just use Mayhem just because that's a common one that people know. All right. We need to understand the role of carbs in your diet, specifically for lowering cortisol levels and making sure that you are getting your glycogen storage recovered to push training the next day. Okay. So having carbs, and this is where meal timing doesn't matter as much for overall body weight, but to optimize how your body feels and the amount of intensity and strength you can gain from your workouts, carb timing is important. Protein, important for muscle repair. However, what I find is that women are very safe with protein. Like, protein tends to be the safe food. You can eat a lot of protein and you don't feel guilty for it. Okay. It's important for muscle repair, but carbs go a long way for energy. Fats are really, really important. And I'm going into macros, and let me just go. I get so many women in CrossFit that are like, I don't want to do macros. You do realize that this is the main thing that helps you feel your best, right? Like, but so many women come from backgrounds of restrictive dieting and like eating by numbers. Okay. This is me just giving you the science. We can talk about strategies, but let's talk about the science. Okay. Fats are what's going to support your hormone production. And calories are truly what signal the safety in the body. Like, so getting enough calories overall are what give your body the safety that, like, okay, I can push. When you don't have enough calories, your body is going to pull back energy. It will. Okay. So one of the common mistakes I do see is women eating very clean, but they're just not eating enough. And I am definitely a proponent for eating a quote unquote clean diet, which I really hate using that word, but eating a minimally processed, mostly whole food based diet. But you have to make sure that you're eating enough. And that's where, most of you guys should not need to be adding in a lot of processed food, but you might need to be eating a little bit more carbs, and adding in some carbs that aren't necessarily just from fruits and vegetables might help you hit the mark. I like recommending whole grains because that's like the next clean carb for you. All right. So most women over 35 are truly not eating too much on a consistent basis. They're under fueling for how hard they work, and their lifestyle has just put them in situations where they might have days where they're over consuming calories from the wrong things, whether it's social stuff, whether it's, they're literally just never eating enough and they're just fitting food in whenever they can, and they're not being mindful of things. And that's where strategy comes into play. All right. So some things that you guys are probably experiencing, if you are in that place where you're like, man, I feel like CrossFit's just not good for my body. Maybe you're feeling puffy. Maybe you're feeling inflamed. Maybe your workouts feel harder than they should. Maybe you feel tired, but also you're like wired at night. Like, you're like, I'm trying to sleep, but I can't sleep. Or you're tired, but you're also like, your central nervous system is always on go. Like, you're always going. Maybe the scale isn't moving, and you're tired of thinking about it. Maybe you don't even know like your hunger cues anymore. You're kind of like, should I be hungry right now? I just ate. Like, you're judging yourself every moment. This is your body protecting you. This is your body saying like, hey, there's stress going on and I am just not sure what to do with it. And it's just trying to get you to slow down and think. And as a female, you're like, I don't know how to do that. I'm just going to keep pushing through, because most of you guys are so busy, you don't know how to stop and think. All right. So I really want to end this today just by pulling you guys in and telling you guys, if you guys want more information on how to dial in your nutrition for CrossFit, specifically if you are dealing with like, I'm having a hard time losing weight, or I'm gaining weight, or I'm having a hard time, I can lose weight, I can't maintain it because my energy tanks. Maybe trying to find that balance between being the athlete you want to be in the gym, not saying that you want to compete, but you just want to feel athletic in the gym, and chasing your body composition goals. Maybe your hormones feel out of whack. I want you to truly come to join me on my workshop. Your hormones, as I'm talking today, they don't respond to motivation, right? So this is the biggest thing, is a lot of us like to act when we're motivated. We think, okay, now's the time to act. Okay. They respond to inputs. And so this means teaching you guys how to actually put inputs into your body that are going to help your hormones give you more motivation. Because when your hormones are happy, motivation goes up. There's a lot of hormones that do regulate your brain function. All right. So we are going to be talking a lot about macro balance for CrossFit, balancing hormones, some specific considerations, supporting fat loss that's going to allow you to not feel burned out, fueling intensity appropriately, making sure that, you're looking at, this is how much I work out, this is what my body needs, and then making sure that we are training for longevity and sustainability. Because CrossFit can be something that you do for a few years and then fizzle out, or it can be a way of life for the rest of your life, right? And there are a lot of athletes that have done CrossFit since 2005 and they still do CrossFit, or 2003, whenever it started. And there are a lot of CrossFit athletes that have left CrossFit and put a bad name about it. CrossFit broke my body. CrossFit did this. No, it did not break your body. Bad diet advice and, under fueling and pushing too hard, not listening to your body is truly what did. And I say that with personal experience. CrossFit could have broken me, but it didn't. I can make the decision, and I made the decision to pull back when I need to pull back, and to say, hey, this is a season of life where my body is asking for something a little bit different because I pushed it too hard for too long. And it's important for everybody to find that place of peace with themselves, that how to take care of yourself. Okay. So CrossFit is not the enemy. CrossFit is an amazing community of people. In fact, for a lot of women, maybe that's what keeps you going to the gym, because you have friends that you go and you work out with. I think the other thing is, like, food is not the enemy. For a lot of you guys, it's not more restriction, more this. It's more structure. It's more routine. It's feeding your body when it needs it, not just when you're eating socially. Those are the things that matter. And your body isn't stuck. You're not broken. Nothing's wrong with you. You just need a better strategy to work with your life. All right. So really, we're looking to align your actions with the goals you want. And that means you want to be able to feel good in the gym. You want to feel good in your skin. And you don't want to be thinking about this for the rest of your life. Wouldn't it be so nice to just have a training and nutrition program that feels like it's just like everything else you do in life, and it becomes something that you look forward to? Because that's the big goal. Big goal is that we live in a body that we're happy and we're proud of. So I'm going to close on that. If you guys have any questions or anything, please feel free to shoot me over a message. I will talk to you all on the next episode. Bye.